history of the hack. In the year 200X, during ElecMan's development, an ownerless soul found his unfinished body and decided to enter into it, giving him a soul. When Dr. Light finished the Robot Masters, during the presentation, ElecMan had seen the crowd of all the people there. They were happy and were also admiring the new Robot Masters. ElecMan was smiling because that included all of his brothers. But on the night when Dr. Wily reprogrammed them, and on the day of the incident, when the Robot Masters began to wreak havoc in all the city, ElecMan and his brothers had caused so much destruction, and he had excelled at this. He had killed many people, and he, in his normal form, saw what he had done, and he felt really bad about it, because he understood. Back then, on the day of presentation, that the people had dreams and wishes that would soon be fulfilled, and that most importantly, all of them had a good heart. And ElecMan, hidden away from the others, cried for all that he had done, and also said in a low voice, "What have I done? Why did I do this to these people?" It's as if I didn't have a heart. He arrived to the power plant that would be his stage, and hid several Rose's seeds, and during the battle against Mega Man, he inwardly cried for that pain. And when he had been defeated, his soul didn't find rest. 10 years later, just after the events of Mega Man 10, in the same power plant, which used to be the stage of ElecMan, all the workers there had been mysteriously electrocuted, and they had died for unknown reasons. And so, it happened. The power plant slaughter, and the plant was left abandoned and surrounded by plants and vines.
Day 1. My summertime vacations had just begun. I wanted an original Mega Man cartridge for my NES because I'd always really liked those games. I had played all the classic saga from the 2nd to the 10th, but I'd never had the chance to play the first one. It was then I realized that a fair had just opened, so I went there to buy some household items until I saw it. A Mega Man game at a very cheap price. I asked the vendor why it was so cheap, and he answered that the game was strange, called it something like a hacked game. He added that the kid who returned it a while ago said, "I'm gonna leave it here, I don't want to play it anymore." Naturally I asked, why? And the only thing the vendor said was, ElecMan. At that time I didn't believe any of his words because I just thought it was some trick to not sell it to me or something, so I decided to buy it anyways. A while later, my parents went out shopping, so they left me to take care of the house. And taking advantage of the situation, I decided to use that time to play the game. When I first saw the cartridge, it wasn't gray colored like other NES cartridges. It was red with black roses. I liked the detail because it was honestly well done. When I started to play, the game was normal, until I tried to choose the ElecMan stage. The game just wasn't responding. So I ended up trying to play all the other Robot Masters first. And then at the end, I tried playing against ElecMan again. At first, he didn't even make his pose. He just stood still, and I noticed a tear. Instead of his name being displayed in the screen, a different text appeared just saying, "Get away. I'll kill you." I started to get a little suspicious. Even when I defeated him, my suspicions didn't go away. But they eventually faded once I defeated Dr. Wily. That night when I went to sleep, I dreamt I was Mega Man. And when I defeated ElecMan, time moved forward to 10 years later. I went to see the power plant where it used to be, the ElecMan stage, and now it was all in ruins. Everything was shadowy, and there were many vines and plants. When I arrived where I fought ElecMan, he was there. The red of his armor was now gray, and the yellow had faded to white. His boots were black just like his eyes, but they had red pupils. And then suddenly, he just killed me using one of his thunder beams, in just a single shot right through the chest. And at that time, ElecMan just looked at me and said, "I warned you. I'm Unhearted. I am ElecMan Unhearted." Everything went blank. The dream didn't keep going or anything. I just suddenly woke up. And thinking back on the dream, my suspicions rose again. Day 2. In the morning, I decided to look up on the computer and investigate anything about the kid who was the previous owner of the cartridge. It came as a big surprise to me finding out that he had suffered from bouts of madness and consequently a heart attack about a week after getting the cartridge originally. Apparently he wasn't able to get over his fear of ElecMan, and he just didn't recover, despite being in good health. I decided to dispose of the cartridge, but I couldn't. It was stuck in my NES. After thinking about it a while, I chose to play it again, but it wasn't the same as yesterday. When I saw the title screen, there were many black and pink roses covering the black background of the game. No robot masters were available except for the Wily box, but instead it was ElecMan taking his place with the same appearance from my dream. And when I started to play the stage, it was the power plant from my dream. It was raining and the plant was abandoned, and also the colors were different, just being white, gray, and black. There were also way more plants, vines, more black and red roses. The only color discernible was just red, apart from Mega Man's colors. ElecMan's theme wasn't playing. Instead, in its place was some sound resembling the rain, but 8-bit. Down the way, humans and robot master bodies were all around, and all of them were growing a black or red rose. It surprised me a lot, but it was exactly like it was in my dream. When I arrived where ElecMan was in the real game, the rain stopped and he appeared, but with the same appearance from my dream. He was ElecMan Unhearted. I tried to defeat him, but he was just disappearing every time I shot him, and his attacks were so harmful. Suddenly, Mega Man started crying out of frustration and was hit by a thunder beam from ElecMan Unhearted. Just as he was about to die, he looks up and says his last words in a text box. "What happened with you, ElecMan?" And then ElecMan answers the question. "I'm sorry. I don't have a heart to feel it. So if I don't have one, you shouldn't have one to feel my pain." The stage faded to black. The Mega Man corpse is shown on the screen with Unhearted at his side. He smiled, crying blood. He got close to Mega Man, and he used his roses to take the corpse, also taking out Mega Man's heart, turning it into a blue and cyan rose. After that, another text box appeared. "I warned you. The black roses will follow you. I am the black roses." After that, my screen turned into pure static. I, quite scared, tried to remove the cartridge, and fortunately this time around I could remove it from the NES. I decided I wasn't going to play it again, not knowing it was useless. That night when I went to sleep, I dreamt about what happened to ElecMan before becoming Unhearted, and at the end of these events I dreamt about the same stage, the abandoned power plant, and I see ElecMan Unhearted. He chases me, and anywhere he puts a step, there are black roses growing with their spikes. I was trying to run, but I couldn't escape. At the end, the black roses caught me, surrounding my entire body and causing me great pain. In my desperation, I just started crying. I see my tears making their way to the black roses. ElecMan got close and said, "I'm sorry. You shouldn't have played with the cartridge before." He put one of his hands on my chest, just where my heart should be, and then he electrocuted me until I died. Or at least, it's what it felt like. ElecMan Unhearted then proceeds to rip into my chest and take my heart, turning it into a red and blue rose. He looked at me and said, "My heart no longer exists, so yours should not exist anymore." Unhearted, crying out of pain and covering his face with his right hand, smiled, and after that I awoke suddenly. I spent 3 days with that horrible nightmare. Day 6. My parents were worried about me. I told them about the problem, and they were really surprised because they thought I was lying, but it was the truth. I was telling the truth, and they ended up believing me. They took me to a psychologist who treated me well since the start, honestly. Probably because he was the same psychologist who had treated the previous owner of the cartridge, the kid who died because of Unhearted. Thanks to his help, I managed to overcome the nightmare. At the end, I'm Mega Man. I defeat ElecMan Unhearted, who turns himself into a small orb, just the way Cyber Elf X does. Suddenly, everyone who died victims of ElecMan Unhearted are revived, and the orb disappears. I'm completely relieved, and I wake up smiling, saying, "I'm ready." Day 7. I played the strange cartridge again, and when it started, the first I saw was ElecMan Unhearted sprite from nowhere. In the black background, he looked at me and said, "Did you stop fearing me? Prove it, facing me now." After that, he disappeared, And then there it was, the title screen. When I finally made it to the end of the stage and faced ElecMan Unhearted, he didn't disappear when I attacked him. In fact, his difficulty now is just like normal ElecMan, so it was honestly pretty easy. Once I arrived at this point, he turned into an orb and disappeared. Right at the moment when Mega Man teleported out of the stage, the screen went to static and the game completely stopped working. I decided to just remove the cartridge. It remained unchanged in its appearance, but it never worked again. I wasn't able to play it because my NES couldn't recognize it anymore. I felt very relieved, honestly. I defeated the heartless ElecMan ghost and freed myself from its curse. I just left the cartridge on my NES. Day 8. I wanted to save the cartridge in a proper place, but to my surprise, when I went to search for it, it just wasn't there anymore. Disappeared. Unhearted was gone. Instead of the cartridge, I just saw a note. You are free from my curse, but the next won't be. EMU. ElecMan Unhearted. I guess this is a warning. If you see this cartridge, be careful if you're a coward.
I think you should use a dark chip.